bueno, mi gente. It is Wednesday. It's hump day. And glad to be here. And I'm be talking a lot about this weekend's fights because I'm working a charity event tomorrow. So the normal preview show that happens on Thursday is going to happen today, on Wednesday, today on this show. So hopefully we reel some people in, talk some boxing. And I want to say this, man. Thank you for all the archive listeners because the archive views have been off the charts. And I think, like, I don't pay much attention to the back office stuff, which is one of the reasons I missed this. But I think one of the reasons that is I've been getting a lot of likes. We've been getting 100+ likes on a couple of shows and close to that on the other shows. So make sure to keep hitting that like button if you do one thing, because I think that's one of the reasons the archive views have been going through the roof, and the retention rate has been good too. It's not just clicks, it's that people are actually listening. And that's a good sign of growth, that the like buttons are going up. And then when I look at, okay, is this just people just clicking? No, because the like buttons are going up. And also I see the retention rate. I see the amount of time people are listening to the show. So people are actually listening to the show and not just clicking because of a topic. So please, if you do one thing, continue to hit that like button for me. That's been doing a lot and growing the podcast and the channels. Bam all the way. And I am from the UK. Shout out Martin Harnett, Anthony Sanchez, salute. Calix, salute to you. Saludos to my guy Nando, as always. Salute to you, my friend. Salute Calix. Carissa Shields needs to be behind bars. Shout out to you. Drunk Irishman. Shout out to you as well. Clarissa Shields. Clarissa Shields is out there. And good Lord, man, I had my thoughts on that. And I'll touch on that eventually in this show, because there's a lot of topics that I want to get through today. A lot. And this will, like I said, I have a charity event tomorrow, so I won't be here tomorrow. I'm going to try to get another show in Friday. I'm going to try to before the fights. I'm going to try hard to, because there's just a lot of topics that I want to talk about. Just a lot of stuff I want to talk about. First of all, let's hit on this. Let's do this real quick. This is the betting odds for the fights this weekend. And I think there's a lot of value out there for this weekend. And we got a card tonight, either tonight or tomorrow night. And it's on my radar from a couple betting guys that I've seen on Twitter that Jose Sanchez may be on the upset alert tonight against Walter Santabanes. So make sure to check out that fight, plus 270 for Santabanes. That Jose Sanchez may be on the upset alert this weekend. But you got Julio Cesar Martinez fighting this weekend, 7-1 favorite against Angelino Cordova. That's one to look out for. MJ Akhmadaliev is coming back after the loss to Tapales, and he's in pretty tough against a guy named Kevin Gonzalez. Chris Colbert, I really like that fight a lot. Chris Colbert against El Rayo, and I like El Rayo in that fight. In an even odds fight. That's a pure even odds fight. You don't get that much in boxing right there. Pure even odds fight between Chris Colbert and Jose Valenzuela. If you look at it, the first fight was a 10-round fight. I believe it was March or April, in a close fight. Close fight. A lot of people felt El Rayo won the fight, but close fight. And this is a 12-round fight. And I think that El Rayo is more durable than Chris Colbert. I think he's mentally tougher. And I think that's going to show later on in this fight. I like El Rayo at even odds. Bam Rodriguez, Sonny Edwards, we'll talk about that in a minute. And David Morell Jr., 18-1 favorite against Santa at Becco. So that's another one that we'll look out for. So I think the value here, still, I think there's value at Bam Rodriguez at minus 225. I think there's levels, not only stylistically and Sonny Edwards not having power in order to keep Bam Rodriguez honest throughout the fight, but I think it's also a levels thing. I think Bam Rodriguez is a great fighter. I think Sonny Edwards is a really good fighter, and those levels are going to show up, I believe, on Saturday. So let's talk first about that. Bam Rodriguez, Sonny Edwards. Let's open up there. Pro Box tonight should be good. Yeah, and that's that upset alert that people are looking out for today. So make sure to tune into Pro Box TV tonight. Let's first talk about the fights in the peripheral. Chris Colbert, El Rayo. Like I said, I think the fact that this is a 12-rounder instead of a 10-rounder. I like Ryo in this fight against Chris Colbert. And people will say the pure boxer in Chris Colbert will be able to take advantage and learn from the first fight. Maybe he's a more versatile fighter. I just think El Rayo is the better fighter. I do. And I think the 12-round fight is going to serve him better. I think he wins this fight at even odds. Morell Jr. versus Ekbeko. And first of all, did y'all know Robert Guerrero is fighting Andre Berto again on Saturday? I love it. Showtime is going out with a bang. They're going out with a bang. Look, if anything symbolizes Showtime and what it's become, it's this card on Saturday. It's Morell Jr. at the top, but they don't officially announce the fight until 8 days before the fight. I was on Twitter last Friday saying, for the love of God, can they put this fight on PBC schedule? Can they put this fight on Showtime's fight schedule? And they keep doing this with Morell Jr. They don't have the fight officially announced or on the schedule till a week before the fight or the week of the fight. If anything shows how lazy these promoters have become and what the PBC is, by the way, they have a guy at the top who is a de facto promoter who cannot behave like a promoter. Why? Because he's also a manager, right? He's an advisor. So he can't go out and actively promote fights. But they're not even promoting these guys. They're not promoting Morell Jr. Morell Jr. is a Cuban-American fighter, and you got him in Minnesota again, and you're comping the hell out of the arena. Can we put him in South Florida like they did Robeisy Ramirez over the past weekend? Like, can you try to build this guy at all? Can you at least promote the fight? This guy is a talented fighter. He's doing everything you want to see a fighter do, right? He's knocking guys out. He's actually knocked guys into a coma. He's knocking guys out. He's bilingual. He speaks English. He speaks the native tongue. He's out promoting himself. He's a good dude. He's charitable. He's speaking about charitable events after the fight. He's specifically calling fighters out. And who's the fighter he's specifically calling out? David Benavidez. David Benavidez. And I got news for you David Benavidez fans out there. Not just the good, pure-hearted David Benavidez fans, because they're out there, but the guys out there promoting like David Benavidez, right? He's the new guy. He's the new guy that's a threat to Canelo, right? You're going to get a taste of your medicine this week, and you're going to get a taste of your medicine on Saturday. When David Benavidez wins this fight against Ekbeko, likely knocks him out, likely looks great again, and then calls out David Benavidez specifically after the fight. And you're going to have David Benavidez or David Morell Jr. say, why does this guy keep ducking me? They told me I was getting the fight next. Samson was out there with the 27 gold chain saying, yeah, we're fighting Morell Jr. next. We're fighting Morell Jr. next. And then they fight Boo Boo Andre. And by the way, I'm not going to move the goalposts. I said, I'm there for Canelo Benavidez after the Plant fight. Now, even more so, good year. Solid year for David Benavidez. I like the Boo Boo Andre win. I like how he looked. I loved how he looked. But I'm just warning you, David Benavidez fans, you're getting a taste of your own medicine because the gap between Canelo and Benavidez, it's the same gap you have between Benavidez and Morell Jr. I love this style matchup between Canelo and Benavidez. I think that's a great matchup. I think it can go either way. I could say the same thing about Benavidez versus Morell Jr. You know what else I could say about Canelo versus Benavidez Jr.? If I wanted to move the goalposts, if I was one of these miserable fans, I could say, where's the pay-per-view sales? Where are they? This guy's not a live gate bonanza. They're out there curtaining off part of the arena in Vegas. He's not doing big numbers. He's not worthy of fighting Canelo. If I was a fan like Tank Davis's fans, I would say that stuff. But I see the Benavidez fans saying the same thing about Morell Jr. that we're not saying about Benavidez when it comes to Canelo. What does Morell Jr. bring to the table? Oh, only 10 fights? Oh, this guy's comped out of his mind in Minnesota. He doesn't deserve the Benavidez fight. What's happening? What's going on? What's going on? What you're getting is a taste of your own medicine. I don't want you out there whining when Morell Jr. knocks out Ekbeko this weekend and calls out Benavidez and says Benavidez is ducking him. Benavidez is saying the same things of Canelo, right? I don't want you whining when you see people parroting this stuff. You're not going to see them parroting this stuff much, right? Because out in social media, out in YouTube, out in Twitter, out in X, Instagram, TikTok, it's largely a pro Benavidez, anti Canelo sentiment, right? I've highlighted why that is. It's because these guys don't have access to Canelo, but they have access to David Benavidez and his team. So they're going to parrot his talking points. Morell Jr.'s lesser known guy. You're not going to have people parroting his talking points out there, but you will have some. And you're going to get a little bit of the taste of your own medicine this weekend. Just warning you. Morell Jr. will knock out Ebeko this weekend, and Morell Jr. does look like a promising young talent. I just wish they would promote this guy correctly. You PBC fanboys out there, man, you have to start looking at this stuff. You have to start looking at the website and say, can y'all, for the love of God, can y'all update the website? Can you at least do that? Can you at least go out and promote this guy? You're not announcing his fight till 8 days before the fight. And he's a Cuban-American fighting in Minnesota. And when you do have guys fighting in the correct places, a Sebastian Fundora, you don't even promote that. You're not even passing out flyers. You're not even putting out billboards. That place is comped. You got a couple hundred people in there. It's ridiculous. Promote these guys. And Morell Jr. to me is he's an example of a guy chronically mismanaged, chronically mispromoted. It would serve him better to go elsewhere. Just going to say that. And you're going to start to hear rumblings of Boots Ennis talking to Matchroom, right? Talking to Matchroom. And it's going to be hilarious to see the reaction to that if Boots Ennis does go to Matchroom USA. Because these guys that were saying, why would Boots go over there to Dead Zone? Why would we go over there to an app? It's better for him to fight on the undercards, deep on the undercards of a cable network than it would be for him to go over to an app. And then if Boots goes to an app, especially Dead Zone, I want to see how these dudes react to that. I want to see what they do with that. What are you going to do with that? What are you going to do? You still going to be riding that Boots in his train? You're going to throw him overboard. What are you going to do? And I'll say this, man. I've been saying that Boots Ennis, another one that's been mismanaged. Boozy Ennis has been mismanaging him, saying stuff like, we don't actually have a contract with Showtime. And by the way, I know this stuff happens because we talked to Tim Tszú's manager. They said, we're loyal to him because all the fighters that we have to fight are over there. All the fighters in the division are over there. So it serves us well to fight with PBC on Showtime. But we're not tied down to him contractually. Boots Ennis, the same thing. Boots Ennis stayed loyal to Showtime. While it didn't serve him well, business-wise, to stay loyal to Showtime. He's been mismanaged. They've largely hid this guy on undercards, and this guy is a gem. Boots Ennis is like that guy's super talented. You look at the eye test, you say that's that dude. That's that guy. That's him, right? If you watch him fight, but he's largely been hidden. You go talk to anybody. Go talk at the water cooler with one of your workmates, right? They're not gonna know who Boots Ennis is. Who? Is he an actor? Boots Ennis. Is he a football player? I've never heard of him. Is he a linebacker? Boots Ennis? No, he's a boxer. Oh, boxer. Okay. They're not gonna know who you're talking about. So if he goes over to Matchroom USA, I'd like for him to have a deal that's structured like Regis Prograis is, to where he's promised 3 fight dates within 14 months. You have to give me 3 fights within 14 months. Get this guy in people's faces. Give him main events. That's what he needs. That's what he needs. Let me give a shout out to some of the people in the chat. What's good to my guy, Shoeshine? Shoeshine in the building over there in Vegas, where they charge people $18 for a smart water. Shout out to my guy, Shoeshine. Love those dudes. I think Edwards is going to make Bam miss and hit air. Yeah, I think he will in spots. I do think he will in spots. I'm about to talk about that matchup in a minute. Salute my man. Hit the thumbs up. Team Batman Boxing. Chicano Prophet is here. Benavidez will face his first pound for pound opponent in Canelo. Yep. Goddamn YouTube has the worst effing alerts, bro. They do. They do. I hear it all the time. I hear it all the time. So we're going to do our best with it. Despite that, I don't even get my own alerts. I alert myself for my own channel through a couple different channels that I have for my kids, and press the bell, and I don't get them. So hopefully people the best thing you could do is hit the like. That's all I can tell you. Just try to hit the like. Smash the likes. This is legit boxing channel, not a troll or narrative channel. Appreciate that. Appreciate you for rolling through. A Cali X and Sean Newton collab would be fire. Maybe we'll do that. I'm going to try to reach out to people in early 2024, January 2024, to do collaboration. So I'll reach out to him. I'm linked up with him on Twitter, so we can get that done. Guerrero versus Berto in the chat. Who do y'all have winning that fight? How the hell do we really know, right? Who wins that fight? Who wins between Guerrero and Berto? That's the rematch we were all calling for, right? We're all calling for it. Showtime is delivering this Saturday with the 18-1 main event. And this rematch that everybody's been calling for a decade, right? And I do like Colbert versus Ryo, though. I do. Bam versus Bam stoppage. Okay. Openda Gates, appreciate that super chat. Appreciate that. By the way, while I'm on that topic, before I get into these matchups and other current events, I went through it because I'm a nerd last Thursday, because there are people out there spreading rumors and stuff that Showtime had the best betting odds for this year and stuff like that. If you look at it, if you take proboxingodds.com and you take the closing odds average, there's a gap, right? There's a range, closing odds, because what Pro Boxing Odds does is it gives you the odds for every single, or most of the betting websites. FanDuel, ESPN Bet, et cetera, et cetera. And if you take that average of all of them, the closing odds average for when they hit ding, 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 the opening bell, it's around 8.7 to 1, 8.5 to 1 when it comes to Showtime. And it's right around the same for Matchroom, 8.5 to 1 to 9 to 1 average. It's right around the same. And you could say that Showtime gave you a higher value of fight per main event, right? As far as an event, as far as people tuning in, etc. But Matchroom and DAZN, Matchroom put on 33 main events from what I see, as opposed to 18 when it comes to PBC that they put on Showtime. So it's roughly 2 to 1. So Matchroom put on almost double the amount of main events this year. And they did that they gave you sort of a mixture. They gave you a mixture of main event fights and then championship level fights. And then they gave you Pacheco fights, right? Like 3 of them, to where he was a serious favorite in the fight. And also women's boxing, Baumgardner, etc., to where the women's fights, they tend to have wider gaps. So what I'm saying is Matchroom met PBC on the same level of odds per fight on average, while still giving you this. You got to give Matchroom credit here. While still giving you, they may not have given you the quality per fight, but they gave you a wide range of things. They gave you showcase fights. They gave you women's fights. They gave you championship fights. And on top of that, I believe they only gave you 2 pay-per-views. When you look at Showtime, PBC on Showtime, they gave you 9 fights that were minus 1,000 or less. In other words, 10 to 1 odds or less. And more than half of those fights went to pay-per-view. You have to take into account, fellas, that Showtime was pricing people to the gills. They were charging people to the gills. This became sort of a it was too much money. It was just way, way, way too much money. So yes, you got value, but look at what you were paying for it, is what I would say. And we can discuss how Matchroom has had a down year, and they have. They have. We could discuss how they gave us Canelo versus Ryder on pay-per-view, and that wasn't pay-per-view value fight. Haney versus Prograis on pay-per-view, that wasn't a pay-per-view. All that is fair. All right, all that is fair. Maybe we should put the showcase fights on the undercards. All that stuff is fair. But they still gave you a wide array of fights and still met the same betting odds as Showtime did. We got to look at the facts. You can have people out there spreading false narratives, but we got to look at the facts. And I don't think people will fact check these people when they say this stuff like this, that they had better betting odds by far, stuff like that. Nobody's going to go out there and fact check these guys. But when you do, if you are willing to do that hour or two of research, you're going to see that they're wrong. It's pretty easy. I'm going to pretend that fight isn't happening. Badass fight Saturday for sure. And it is. Here at PBC has TV deal with regular TV network. I am hearing that. But you hear all kind of stuff. I'm also hearing that the Saudis are looking at buying out a couple promotional companies. So, and by the way, when you hear this stuff, I want you to keep in mind that you're not going to see a great reset. You're going to see a very, 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 very limp, soft reset is what you're going to see in the boxing market, because you're always going to have power players overpaying fighters at the top. Did y'all see this? I think it's Japanese dude that got like a $700 million contract. This happens in every sport, fellas. They're going to overpay for athletes. And you're going to have the same thing in boxing. You're going to have Saudis overpaying guys to where guys like Deontay Wilder would have never fought on Anthony Joshua's undercard if he wasn't getting paid all kind of extravagant money. And he'll sit there at that press conference and play the role because he's getting paid well. And when the Saudis do this, and when Eddie Hearn is still willing to go out there and wine and dine a Boots Ennis, and he's going to overpay a Boots Ennis just like he did a Devin Haney and a Regis Prograis because he needs to get Matchroom USA going, you're not going to have this great reset at the top. You're just not. Sorry. I know people want to see that, but you're just not going to have it. So no, NBC is not going to be in play. They're not going to be in play, but the PBC has to have another outlet to put on fights, because we're talking about 12 to 14 days, fellas, with a limited budget or no budget at all, whatever it is. That's going to be pay-per-view heavy. I just hate to break that to you. It's going to be more pay-per-views, more inactivity. And you're going to have more fighters who have been at Showtime starting to, if they're able to, if they have the freedom to, start to put out feelers to guys like Matchroom, Golden Boy, Top Rank, to see what they've got going on and sort of play the field a little bit. Bam, some eggs, sunny side up. Great news to more eyes on boxing. Obviously, the better. I hope Ryder beats Munguia. I think that's a hell of a fight. That's a hell of a fight. Be interesting if Ryder wins. Obviously, Ryder ain't getting rematched soon anyway. DAZN overpaid Canelo on original contract and they went to court. Yeah. You're right. You're right. Before I get into no, let's just do it. Bam versus Sonny. Bam now is up to minus 225. Every time I check, the odds get a little wider. Now it's minus 225. Last night it was minus 210. Earlier in the week it was like minus 180. You seem to have more money coming in on Bam. And this is what I'll say about this fight is, when it comes to Bam versus Sonny, there's a trend this year in that anytime you have close to even odds fights that have divisional implications with them, 1 versus 2, or in this case it's 1 versus 4 according to Ring Magazine, but I think everybody sees what this fight is. Despite the rankings, Sonny and Bam are the two best fighters in that division. There's no doubt about that. Julio Cesar Martinez fights. Delakian is number 3. Martinez fights this weekend as well, but these are the two best fighters in that division, universally recognized. And whoever wins this fight will be recognized as the number 1 fighter at 112, so it has 112 implications. The king of the division, whoever wins this fight, despite if the Ring Magazine lineal title is not recognizing it, and we're going to have a debate on whether that should be the case or not. But despite all that, this is the people's champ at 112. This is the universally recognized guy at 112. Divisional implications. And generally, when you have divisional implications, you have pound for pound implications on the line as well. And in the fights where you've had that this year, you've had a fighter in particular, show out. Bud versus Errol. Bud puts on a special performance in what was supposed to be a 50-50 fight. You've had it with Teofimo versus Josh Taylor. Teofimo shows out. You had it in Inoue versus Fulton Jr. It was supposed to be close to a 50-50 fight. Inoue shows out. And then you had it last weekend, Haney versus Prograis, 3.5, 4-1 odds. And in boxing, that's close. When we talk about the average that these promotional companies are putting out as far as betting odds, it's somewhere between 8.5 to 1 to 12 to 1. So when you have fights that are 3.5 to 4 to 1, those may as well be toss-up fights in boxing. So when you have Devin Haney versus Regis Prograis and Devin Haney shows out, the trend is that in these divisional implications fights, somebody puts on a pound for pound performance. And look, you can say none of that. This fight this weekend has nothing to do with that. But I don't think we can ignore that trend. We're seeing gaps between fighters at the top show up this year. And I think there is a gap in levels between Bam and Sonny. When I say I think Bam wins this fight, and I think Bam is going to end up winning this fight convincingly, it's going to be close. And this doesn't take away and devalue what I think about Sonny. Sonny has a good resume. Sonny has a good resume and a good division. Sonny is elite at several things, and you have to be if you have no power. Sonny's a guy who has elite footwork, just elite footwork and foot positioning. And in order to have that, you generally have to have great athleticism. He's a great athletic fighter. Great athlete, top shelf athlete. And on top of that, he's one of the few, Bud Crawford is in this number, he's one of the few fighters that can switch from conventional to southpaw, conventional to southpaw, conventional to southpaw without you even recognizing it. It's just natural. He can naturally fight southpaw. He can have his power hand as the lead. And his jab is almost just as good, his right jab, as his left jab. And on top of that, I think what he's shown in the last two fights is against tough fighters, when the fights got tough, he showed toughness. And how did he do that? He laid up against the ropes to buy himself time in order to fight. When you fight that level of fighters, high output fighters, and you're a fighter who has to depend on aerobic energy a lot, like a Sonny Edwards, because you don't have the power to necessarily stay in the pocket in the middle of the ring. You have to buy yourself time and spots, and he has shown that he can do that against tough punchers and output fighters. He has shown that he can go up against the ropes, position himself, roll with punches, take punches. I think he has an elite chin. And then trade and counter in spots and roll off his shots and counter and keep fighters honest on the ropes and then spin off and then get back to work. So he's shown all those things. But I do believe there's a gap between the level of competition that Sonny Edwards has faced and what he'll see on Saturday. It's not only a stylistic thing to where you say, man, I don't know if he doesn't have power. I don't know if he can beat a Bam Rodriguez. I don't know if he can do it. I think it's a levels thing too. I think this is a level up for him. And I don't know if I'd say the same about Bam here. What's interesting about Bam here is you could say Soran Vise, Carlos Cuadras, elite fighters. So I don't know if Sonny Edwards is a step up, but at the same time, Sonny Edwards is a step up in this, in that he's in his prime. Rungvisai was not in his prime. Cuadras was not in his prime. Just a different type of fighter as well. He's going to have to go out there and find Sonny Edwards. He's going to have to go out there and show versatility, show his shiftiness, and he has all that. He can cut off the ring. He's a shifty fighter. But it's going to be a little bit tougher for him against a younger fighter in his prime in a Sonny Edwards. So if he does this, look, the last two fights he had, The one I was at last Saturday, last September, and then the one earlier this year with the broken orbital bone. Um, After the Rungvisai and Quadras fights, you were saying, man, this is. I was saying, I'll just put myself in this. This is a pound for pound guy. He belongs somewhere between 9 and 12 and pound for pound list, somewhere around there, like somewhere on the bottom end of that or right outside of it. And then his last two fights, you see him fight, and you're like, I don't know. I don't know. Those weren't great performances by any means. I disagree with D-Style. I think he was in closer fights than people are trying to brush and sweep under the rug in his last two fights. I think he was tested. If he beats Sonny Edwards, specifically if he does it emphatically on Saturday night, it's right back to where we were, Sora Rungvisai, Carlos Quadras. This guy is pound for pound talent. This guy is a pound for pound talent. This guy is the best fighter at 112. This is the guy that we thought would run through 115 if he stayed at 115. This is a guy who could beat Gallo Estrada and Chocolatito and younger fighters like a Junto Nakatani if he moved up to 115. That is that guy. He's that guy. He could beat Dalaki and Martinez. He can beat those guys at 112, and he can run through 112. He can move up to 115 and do the same thing. We're right back to that if he emphatically beats Sonny Edwards. That's where we are. And I would, if people out there saying that, I would disagree with that. I think he can cut off the ring. I think he is shifty. I think he does have great footwork. So the last two fights, I think he had people in front of him that were tough fighters that maybe he undervalued. And you got to keep this wild card out there too. We saw this with Teofimo. Teofimo is very much a fighter like this. Is you have certain fighters who fight down to the level of competition and up to the level of competition. And Bam could be one of those fighters that Sonny Edwards, yeah, I'm up for this one. I'm up. We're going to do this. I'm up. But this isn't just, and I don't think you'll have other channels telling you this, so I'll say it, because I believe it. Anytime you have divisional implications fights, it's generally pound for pound list on the line as well. And you have that with this. I think the reason you're not hearing that a lot is because you have a lot of people who just don't pay attention much to what's going on underneath 135, 130. Let's just be honest. If it's not in a way, people just aren't paying attention to it. And they're not going to have guys like Ioka, Taraji entertained for pound lists. You're going to see these guys. You're going to see them. They'll have Tank, Benavidez on their pound for pound list, Ioka, Taraji, guys who are ultra talented in lower weight classes and really doing things. They're not going to have on pound for pound lists. I've even seen these guys when Chocolatito and Gallo Estrada were active, not put those guys on this list. So if those guys don't have a chance, then they're certainly not paying attention to Bam versus Sonny. But this isn't just divisional implications. This is pound for pound implications. And it's the reason that I'm holding off on putting out my pound for pound list, my updated pound for pound list. And you're going to see updated pound for pound lists out there. I'll say this about that. We can disagree with pound for pound lists out there. There's a particular one that every time it's put out, people, their heads explode. It was put out yesterday. And you're going to see that. It's hard. It's difficult putting together, especially in this climate when you have some guys fighting 3 times, some guys fighting once. Most guys are fighting in between once and twice. It's just hard to do. It's hard to do. There's just a lack of separation once you get to the second half of that list. So it's difficult to do. All I can do in putting together a list is stay consistent with certain things, be rigid with certain things that I value, and then be a little flexible with others. Because in a sport that involves so much nuance, it's hard to stay rigid with certain things. And pound for pound list becomes difficult. And 2 things I would be rigid on is I do value resumes, and I also value activities. So guys who aren't fighting once within a 12-month period, they're off. They're off the list. I have no tolerance for that. Dimitri Bivol is not on my list. He's fighting coming soon, but he's gonna have to work his way back on the list. It's my list. I can do with it what I want with it. But it's difficult putting these lists together. It just is. But I'm holding off on doing mine until next weekend. And every time I put one out, people's heads explode too. And I have guys doing YouTube videos calling me all kind of names for having Lomachenko in my top 10, and I don't have Lomachenko in my top 10. I'm saying, did the public school system fail these dudes so bad in America to where they can't even read the list? It's like, dude, you're criticizing me for having Lomachenko on my top 10 pound for pound list. I haven't had Lomachenko on my top 10 pound for pound list in like 2 years. You're criticizing something that does not exist. I don't have Lomachenko on my top 10 pound for pound list. And I think there's an argument for it. If it's a subjective list and you subjectively think he beat Devin Haney, then put him on the list. That's fine. But it's not my argument, and I don't have him on my list. And you're criticizing me for having him on the list, and I literally do not have him on the list. So I point that out to say, not only would you get criticized for your list, you get criticized for dudes that aren't even on your list. And people claiming that you're doing stuff you're not doing just to call you racist or something. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. And that's why dudes are out there just doing, I don't want to do a pound for pound list. I want to be called racist. Pound for pound list. I'm just not going to do it anymore. I'm just going to criticize other people's pound for pound list. It just is what it is. But I love this fight, man. This fight is everything that's right. I think it's 1 versus 2 in the division. 2 best guys in the division just fighting each other. It's Sonny Edwards coming over to America. He's been calling for this fight for a while, saying, Bam, fight me. Bam, fight me. Bam, fight me. So it's Bam saying, all right, I'll fight you. And then it's Sonny saying, I'll come over there and fight you. Let's do it. And you're not going to see the theatrics. You're going to see the same crowd come out and say things like, look at how cheap the tickets are. Oh, my God, look at how cheap the tickets are. These dudes can't draw. Can you dudes just enjoy a good fight? I've never seen fans of a sport be as miserable as these dudes. And 90% of these dudes are probably broke. They're probably broke. When I call for $50 to $60 tickets, when I say that this fight shouldn't be on pay-per-view, I have dudes tell me all the time, you're broke. Look at Broke Boy with his Broke Boy stuff over there. Oh, my God, he's broke. Look at Broke Boy complaining about pay-per-views. Oh, my God, look at Broke Boy with his Broke Boy tactics and saying he wants to see cheap tickets. Dude, it'd be nice to have cheap tickets. Wouldn't it be nice to usher in a new generation of boxing fans by making fights affordable and putting them in places where they belong? Hello? Maybe? Why in the hell are y'all looking down and thumbing your nose down on working class people? I don't get it. I'm fine. I'm sitting over here fine. I've had dudes accuse me of doing podcasts in closets because I'm broke. I got news for you. I'm right now in my son's bedroom doing a podcast. Call me broke if you want. I don't care. Dude, I guarantee you, I'm fine. I'm over here fine. I am perfectly fine. But if you want to criticize these things, go ahead. I don't care. I don't care. It's fine. I'm just saying it would be nice to have pay-per-views, less pay-per-views, and more affordable fights. And this is everything that's right about boxing. You'll see 3 generations of boxing fans in that building, in that arena. You'll see a good, close to 50-50 odds fight. That's good, right? I talked about this earlier on Twitter or X or whatever Elon's calling it. I said, show Robeisy Ramirez and Rafael Espinoza love. Give them credit. You dudes are out here saying you want good fights, right? You want fun fights. You want entertaining fights. You want to see dudes and tough, right? You want to see dudes active, right? Well, they gave you all of that. Robeisy fought 6 times in the past 2 years. Espinoza 7 times in the past 2 years. These dudes have combined for 13 fights in the past 2 years, and they gave you a fight of the year candidate, laid it all on the line. gave props to each other, shook each other's hands after, and then said we'll do a rematch, and then went their separate ways. That's everything that's good, right? That's what we want, right? But instead, what we get is, oh, they got hit. Look at these cavemen getting hit. Oh my God. Robise, look at how flawed Robise Ramirez is. What a bum. He's been overrated the whole time. I knew it. He lost to this Mexican bum off the street, 14-1 favorite, and he still lost. Oh my God, Robise is a bum. Can you dudes, for the love of God, can we please have nice things? Can we please have nice things? It's a fight of the year candidate. These dudes are fighting often. Is that not what we want? I want that. I speak for myself. I want that. And I'm watching closely the rest of this month, the next 2 weeks, because people are going to start putting out their fight of the year and year-end awards, all right? And I see the publications who are out there saying they value activity, value resume. But then I see some of those publications do things like maybe put Tank a little higher on pound for pound list than he should, or put him on lists when he doesn't belong on them. And I know why this stuff happens, fellas. I know why it happens. There's a marketing campaign, a very, very ugly and mean marketing campaign out there when it comes to certain fighters, their fan bases, their power brokers. They're out there active, and they're saying things like, if you don't put my fighter on your pound for pound list, you may just be a little racist. I don't know. You may just be a little racist. I'm just saying. And then these dudes just succumb to it. They say, well, we don't really need to see it against great competition. It's the performances. He looks that way, so we'll just put him on there. But I want to see if these people are about what they say they're about. You're about resume, well, you got to show it. If you're about activity, maybe we should show the Robise Ramirez's, the Lee Woods, the Navarretes, the Tim Tszus a little credit for fighting 3 times this year, as opposed to their peers. They're the only 4 guys in the top 100 ESPN pound for pound list coming into this year who fought 3 times this year. Only ones. So I offer those 4 fighters more forgiveness than I'm offering the other fighters. I'm praising those guys for giving me what I said I wanted. So I'm paying attention to year-end awards to the people who are saying they value activity. Fair enough. But if you give Bud Crawford your Fighter of the Year award, how much do you value activity? Special performance from a special fighter. I love Bud Crawford. People aren't going to remember this, but one of the first ones, praising this guy on the YTBC a decade ago. When everybody was paying attention to Adrian Broner. Look at Adrian Broner. Look how special Adrian Broner is, pound for pound. I see Adrian Broner popping up on top 5 pound for pound lists. 5. And I'm saying, Adrian Broner, number 5 pound for pound? Really? And I'm doing videos saying, this is actually the guy over here. His name's Terrence Bud Crawford. That's actually the guy you should be paying attention to. This is all smoke and mirrors over here. You dudes are the cats paying attention to the laser pointer on the wall with Adrian Broner and what happens over time. You saw what happens. I'm like, Adrian Broner. Adrian Broner. I see the same things happening now. I see Tank Davis getting a lot of credit for things that Devin Haney and Teofimo are actually doing. I see pound for pound lists with Tank on the same level as Devin and Teo. I'm like, what? What? You value resume? And when I look at these year-end awards, I'm going to pay attention to the guys who say they value activity, but then give it to Bud Crawford. Like I said, special performance, special fighter, but you did it once. We have to define what a part-time fighter is and what a full-time fighter is if we want activity. If we want activity, we have to define what activity is. So if you're saying a guy who fights once per year can win a full-time award, you're saying that that's a full-time fighter and once a year is activity. If you're saying that a guy only has to fight once every 18 months to stay on divisional rankings, How much are we valuing activity? I don't know. So if you're gonna put Bud Crawford as your fighter of the year, fair enough. Just don't say you value activity at the same time. Don't. And the reason I'm tough on this as a boxing fan, because I'm not a journalist, I'm not a publication, I'm not any of that. I'm not a YouTube channel pretending to be a journalist. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm a boxing fan speaking to other boxing fans about how we can further our agenda as boxing fans. And how we can further our agenda as boxing fans is say what we value as boxing fans and then stick to it, and then tell these journalists that we're going to hold your feet to the fire. We have a collective voice here, and we're going to stay consistent on what we want, and we're going to hold you to it. And as journalists, you should be able to stay consistent with that. And we value resume, we value activity. We want to see fighters fight. And if you're doing year-end awards and you're giving a part-time award, a full-time award to a part-time fighter, I don't know what that is. And I saw this, man. Like, I'm old enough to remember this 4 years ago, when this was the most nauseating thing, I think, for me to watch. And I wasn't active on YouTube at the time to call it out, but I was around. And I would see on YouTube, I would see on the big publications on Twitter, they're doing decade awards, 2010 to 2019, 2010's decade awards, right? And they're doing fighter of the decade. And I'm watching them time after time, even like a Thomas Hauser. He's doing his top 3 fighters of the decade. And Chocolatito's not one of his 3 top fighters of the decade. And part of me is like, all right, it's just subjective. Just let him do his thing. But then the other part of this is like, no, man, like this stuff matters. It matters. I'm a boxing fan. I want to see fighters fight. And these dudes are handing Floyd the award. Floyd. And I'm saying, dude, can you type in the search engine Floyd Mayweather box rec? And if you do that, you will see a guy who fought once in the second half of that decade. And he did it against a guy who was 0-0 from another sport. He is, by definition, in my opinion anyway, a part-time fighter for that decade. 2 of his 10 fights were against Andre Berto and Conor McGregor. And you could say, yeah, but Canelo and Pacquiao, fair enough. But the Pacquiao fight came too late, in my opinion. But still, he's fighting on average once per year. And Chocolatito is outpacing this guy almost 3-1 as far as fights. He has over double. He has 21 knockouts. He has over twice as many knockouts as Floyd has fights. And he does it in 4 weight classes. And I'm watching this stuff. I'm like, we're lost. We're lost. This is who we have as boxing fans to try to hold people accountable, power brokers. And I'll tell you this about power brokers. And I said this on Twitter earlier. The power brokers are not impressive. They're just not. All these people out there acting like these dudes are out there and back there doing thermodynamic equations and all this kind of stuff, right? They're out there working on a delicate process. Like delicate. This thing can fall apart at any time. Anytime. We're out here trying to fit triangle blocks into circle holes, and we're out here trying to work so hard for you. And this is a delicate process, man. We have to be so intelligent in how we approach this stuff, right? So delicate. And you just don't understand. You don't understand. When we start to push back on it, it's always the same thing, right? If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. And you guys just don't understand. You're just boxing fans. You don't understand what we go through back here. And then you guys don't do multi-million dollar deals. Multi-million dollar deals. You never understand the process. These dudes are not impressive. They're only impressive to other unimpressive people. These dudes are no better than the suburban housewives, the bored suburban housewives out there. They're sitting at home while their kids are in school, and they're getting on Facebook, and they're running Mary Kay and Herbalife scams. They're trying to sell Herbalife to one of their friends from the PTA meeting. They're meeting up with their PTA meeting friends, and they're telling them, look, you can buy some Herbalife from me on discount. And guess what? Guess what? You can also buy them from me in bulk at a discounted price and then sell them to your friends. And they're like, oh, yeah, it's okay. It's a good idea. It's a good idea. But what they don't know is that woman is making money off of their sales too. And then they bring people in, and then she's making money off of their sales, and then their sales, and then their sales. I was a victim of one of these when I was in college. I'm just trying to make money for college, to pay for college. And one of my friends gets me into one of these insurance pyramid schemes. And I'm going to take a test. To try to get authorized to sell insurance in the state of Louisiana, and I paid $350 for the test, and then I find out that the test is only $150, and I gave the $350 check to my friend so he can sign me up to take the test. And I'm saying, wait a second, that's $200 unaccounted for. Where did that $200 go? It's a pyramid scheme. And you see these suburban housewives on Facebook, they're becoming victims of pyramid schemes from their friends. Herbalife, Mary Kay, selling Tupperware. And they realize these women aren't impressive, but these women are raking in money. Raking in money at their expense. These dudes, the boxing's power brokers, are no different. No different. They're finding a young up-and-coming fighter. They're going to run this low-risk, high-reward scheme. They're going to keep their fighter insulated. They're going to dumb down the market into thinking that these fights, these big fights up here, are too hard to make, man. They're very difficult to make, and it takes time. It takes time to make these fights. You don't understand. It takes time. It takes time to make these fights. You got to be patient. You got to be patient. And while they're doing this, fight after fight after fight is easy fights for their fighter. But guess what? Hector Luis Garcia is actually a great fighter. Forget that he just lost his title, right? Riley Romero is actually a great fighter. Forget that he just was about to lose to a guy who's 80 years old, who looks like an apocalypto extra. Manny Barrios is actually an excellent fighter who brings a lot to the table. He had a Reggie belt. Josh Taylor has all the belts. Why don't you fight him? Josh Taylor doesn't bring anything to the table. Wait, what? What? Wait a second, what? And when you when you hold these guys publicly to their little scams, their little pyramid schemes here, their low risk, high reward schemes, they do the same trigger talking points, right? You're just a boxing fan. You don't know. You don't know what we're doing back here. It's a delicate process. It could fall apart at any time. When it's Manny Barrios or Riley Romero, it's an easy fight to make. When it's Josh Taylor, it's quantum physics. So many obstacles. It's very delicate. It's a very delicate process. It's very delicate. And you just don't understand how we're so smart. We're wizards. You just don't understand. These things are very difficult to make. You just don't get it. When it comes to Devin Haney, Tank Davis versus Devin Haney, once again, it's quantum physics. We just can't do it. It's all kinds of algorithms that we have to go through. It's too many obstacles. That's when the obstacles appear. These obstacles are too insurmountable for us to make that fight. But I see this for what it is. And this isn't just me just throwing crap at a sacred cow. This is me telling you this aura you have built up around you. You think these guys are huge, right? You think these guys are so smart. I don't think so. I think these dudes are unimpressive. I think these dudes come to boxing because they figured out that this is where unimpressive people can come to make money. That's what I think. I think these dudes are only impressive to unimpressive people. Unimpressive people are generally impressive to unimpressive people. And I think that's what we got here. These dudes are running a Mary Kay Herbalife scam. They're no more intelligent than these suburban housewives running these scams on Facebook. That's what I think. Give me my fights. Give me my fights. I don't want to hear it. And when all else fails, what do? They go to the racist thing, right? You're racist. Look, perfect example right here. Y'all see our guy, Leonard? My BFF. It's my BFF, Leonard. Let me take this comment down real quick. That's my BFF, Leonard. And he's reacting to the Clarissa stuff. We'll get into that in a minute. And he's saying, F all them. It's the same clowns that are miserable and feel a certain way about black people and their accomplishments is the same group of lames. Don't allow other people's perception change who you are. Keep living your life and smiling and being the best version of you. Be the best version of you. Just be the best version of you, Clarissa. Don't listen to these lames. Just be the best version of you. And this is reaction to Clarissa. Clarissa's down there. To whom it may concern. She's typing with her head bobbing. No matter what I go through, private or private, I'm still going to think I'm all that. And that stuff. Look, man, here's what I'll say about the Clarissa thing. And I'll be brief about this because she's another one so unimpressive. So unimpressive. She's the most boring fighter in the world. The most boring boxer in the world, both inside and outside the ring, in my opinion anyway. Just nauseating, just a nauseating personality. And everybody I've known who has met Clarissa Shields has said the same thing. Low character. And we had a couple of years ago a fighter take a really bad L. Really bad L in Deontay Wilder. I know we all remember that. Took a really bad L. And instead of just accepting the L, what did he do? He threw many people under the bus, but one of the people he threw under the bus was his own trainer, Mark Breland, who by all accounts, is a great guy. By all accounts, had integrity in the world of boxing. Not only as a former fighter, Olympian, champion, but as a trainer. Everybody's saying this guy's a poster board for integrity. It's a good dude, right? Good dude. Yet Deontay Wilder takes an L, and instead of just taking that L, what does he do? He says that Mark Breland poisoned him. Poisoned him. And still to this day, you have people, a lot of them, a lot of channels on YouTube, a lot of people on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, who still believe this cockamamie narrative that Mark Breland put the date rape drug or whatever in his own fighter's bottle during the fight. And I'm listening to this. I'm saying, okay, that doesn't make sense, but please explain. Please explain why you think this is. And it's just because. Okay, so why would he do that? Because Tyson Fury paid him to do it. Doesn't make sense. Sorry. No, it doesn't make sense. But the mistake, I would call it a mistake that Mark Breland made was, I'm going to take the high road. Over time, I'm going to be seen above Deontay Wilder. I'm going to just take the high road here. I'm going to take the high road. Instead of lawyering up and making defamation, putting out defamation lawsuits. And I'm watching Derek Santos's 21-minute Pro Box TV interview last night. I'm beside myself. I'm like, how in the hell does this? How does this happen? How does this happen? How does this happen? Not the claim, because it's not surprising that this is coming from a low character person like Clarissa Shields, much like with Deontay Wilder. That's not the surprising part. We know why that would happen, because by nature, low character, low integrity people. And instead of just taking L's, they got to throw everybody under the bus. But they're throwing innocent people under the bus. And I'm watching this interview with Derek Santos, and he's going in detail what happened. He's saying, I got video of it. I got video of the glove that has padding in it. And it's all there. It's all there. And the fighter is telling me why he did this after 5 years. We all let it go, but he's telling me she just keeps going with it, keeps going with it. And he's saying, I'm telling the fighter to lighten up. When male fighters fight female fighters, we tell them to lighten up and just go through the motions and pull punches and all this stuff. All of this was there. High integrity person just explaining the whole process in detail. But he's saying at the end, I'm getting a lawyer. She's defaming my character, my integrity. And what I'm saying is until trainers start to do this, and until people who are accused of doing terrible things start to lawyer up, this is going to continue to happen. So I'm glad Derek Santos may be taking this road here, this route, because I think he's seeing a mistake. Maybe I would call it a mistake that Mark Breland made, and say, I'm going to just take the high road and I'm going to let the public do what the public does. And obviously they're going to see that I didn't poison my own fighter, because why in the hell would I poison my own fighter in his biggest fight? Why would I do that? Why in the world would I do that? But the mistake that he made is he's taking into account, he thinks that this is a high IQ public that we're dealing with. And when you look at the people who are getting a lot of clicks on YouTube, a lot of clicks on Twitter, a lot of them aren't high IQ. And this character assassination stuff continues, and it continues, and it continues until somebody steps up and says, no, I'm not doing it anymore. And I think Derek Santos may see Mark Breland out there and what happened with him and say, we're not doing this. I'm not doing it. I gave her a chance. I gave her a chance to walk this stuff back, and we're not going to do it. We're not going to do it. I'm sorry. I didn't take padding out of my fighter's glove so he could beat a woman. Why don't I do this? And you dudes out there, like our friend, our BFF here, our BFF right there, Leonard Ellaby. Leonard Ellaby's not taking up for Clarissa Shields here. What he's doing is he's projecting. He's projecting that people come after me because of my race or whatever, as if we think this dude's impressive. He's the least impressive dude in the world. I mean, I can't even explain how unimpressed I am with the dude. But what happens, I find, with the females, the female fighters, and this is the flaw of the modern day feminist movement, I would say, is they want to say they're equal to men, all this stuff. Some of them do anyway. We're equal to men. We can do everything. I can beat Keith Thurman. I can beat this guy. I can beat that guy. I can beat up on every man. And they want you to believe that, right? But then, in the very next account, when they get in trouble, they want to act like damsels in distress. Look at Alicia Baumgardner. Alicia Baumgardner allegedly pops dirty. And then all of a sudden, she's a damsel in distress. And I think they largely take advantage of a simp culture in boxing. There's a simp culture in boxing. Liza's going to agree with me in there. Liza, how many simps do you see on Twitter? Just simping. Everybody's just simping out there. It was one of the most shocking things to me when I started doing boxing commentary, you would call it, content creation in 2010. I was like, I've never seen a more beta group of dudes. And they're out here supporting and covering the most manly sport in the world. It's weird. It's a weird disconnect. It's such a weird disconnect. But anytime there's some sort of attractive woman out there, just a resemblance of that, dudes are going to simp. And then Alicia Baumgardner pop dirty, allegedly pop dirty. And then what's the first thing she'll do? Show a photo of herself in a bikini. And dudes will be like, oh, I don't think she popped dirty. I don't think, Alicia, you go, girl. I don't think you popped dirty. I don't think you popped dirty. And then if enough dudes don't say that, if enough dudes don't simp and show simp behavior, what's Alicia going to do? The next photo will be in lingerie or something. Yeah, she didn't pop dirty. She didn't pop dirty. We believe you, Alicia. We believe you. So what we want to see is women need to be held accountable the same as men. Right? If they want the same accolades as men, we got to keep it consistent. You can't come out here and act like a damsel in distress and like you need help and like you need Captain Save-A-Hose like Leonard Ellaby to come out in defense of you. If you're talking all this trash, you can't do it. You can't do it. But my main point here is this dude, Derek Santos, you need to be aggressive here. I liked your interview with Pro Box TV. You need to be aggressive. Your character is definitely being defamed here. You need to be aggressive. You need to go on offense. Keep doing it. It's the only way this behavior is going to stop. On that note, man, I got to bounce. Got to go get my kids. Peace. God bless.